And I personally am super thrilled to have today Amanda Haas, who is not only a cookbook author, but director of Culinary for Williams-Sonoma. And the specific book we're going to talk about today is the Anti-Inflammation Cookbook, which I think connects very deeply with our mission to really show you how food connects to how you can feel and how you can be your best self. So please join me in welcoming Amanda.
Thank you, everyone. Hi, thank you, Jenna. I'm so excited to be here today, and I think it's interesting as she was sharing your mission with me. We are very well aligned in that.
Very much so, yes.
Yeah, so hello, everyone. What a beautiful space to be in. As I was preparing this week and thinking about who my audience was, I was really thinking about how your work affects my life every day, right? Like, I wake up really early every morning, and one of the first things I do while I make my coffee is go to Google News and read what's been perfectly curated for me every morning and get my taste of the world, and then, get on with my day and do something like come here and it's Google Maps, and then I get to work, or I come here and I'm with my family, and what do I do all day? I Google things. And so you have made my life so much easier through your work, and it's so meaningful. So it's a real pleasure for me to get to share my passion and my work with you all today, even for this short amount of time. So two of the things that I'm the most passionate about. One is teaching people how to cook. So I don't know how many of you spend a lot of time in the kitchen, but I love instructing and teaching people how to cook every day. And then the other thing I love is this conversation between what we eat and how we feel, and as it pertains to inflammation. So that's going to be a part of the conversation that we'll just weave into the cooking piece today. So thank you for spending this time with me. I know that there are many other things you could be doing today. So start off with a question. How many of you have seen the movie Ratatouille? Oh. Almost everybody. I'm not the only one. I think it's my favorite Pixar movie. We'll see if Finding Dory beats it this summer. But the thing I love about that movie, if you haven't seen it, is that there's this great theme. And Remy, the rat, who's so inspired to cook and doesn't care that he's a rat, worships Chef Gusteau, right? And Chef Gusteau, the Parisian chef who'd won all the awards and is a great cook and has his Michelin stars, his motto was, anyone can cook. And when I saw that movie, it just really resonated with me, because I do think anyone can cook. But as an instructor and a cookbook author, I think a lot of the responsibility is on me to teach you how to do that and how to write recipes or talk to you in a way that makes it so easy you want to go home and try to recreate these things today. So whether you are 9 or you're 60, it doesn't matter. Hopefully that when you leave here today, you'll want to take these recipes and make them for yourselves at home. The other part of this conversation that we'll have is, why should we even care about inflammation or food and how it makes us feel? And for me, it's a really personal journey, like it is for everyone, and food is such a personal thing. But basically, over the last 20 years, I'd been suffering from some health things that no one could really explain. So I'd always been, we joke that I kind of look normal, but I didn't feel normal. So, allergies and asthma and eczema, and then I started getting chronic heartburn as I aged, and then got signs of rheumatoid arthritis that we couldn't explain. So all of these problems, and back problems my whole life. And it was so interesting because I tried everything. I tried all kinds of regular medicine. I tried East meets West, acupuncture, acupressure, physical therapy. And about 7 years ago, I walked into an allergist's office and I started listing my ailments, and I was crying because about once a year, I would just be so upset about this, wondering, why can't I get better? And he stopped me and he said, Amanda, there's some really good news here. Everything that you're talking about is inflammation. It's just a different form of inflammation in your body. And all that meant was that your body is reacting to some outside irritant. So he said, guess what? You're a cook. You can fix this. I know that there's something that you're eating that is making you feel terrible. And it's showing itself in all of these ridiculous things that are going on with you. So he sent me away, and he also said, and once you figure it out, you got to do something about it. You got to shout it from the rooftops if you can fix this. So he told me, quit gluten. I don't want you having a bite of gluten for 2 weeks, and tell me what happens. And fortunately or unfortunately, the changes were so profound within 2 days, I couldn't even believe it. And so I was almost angry at myself that that's the last thing that I'd turned to, that I used food as my last solution instead of the first. And so what happened is it became super empowering to know that what I was eating could make me feel great, or it could make me feel terrible really quickly. And that every choice I make when I sit down at the table affects my well-being. So this book is a culmination of that journey. And hopefully it pertains to a lot of us, because it's not just about what I can't have or what I can have. negative. It's more about explaining what's gone on with food and why so many of us are reacting to different types of food now that we didn't used to have problems with. And the whole idea that let's explain it with this great doctor who has spoken to Google before, Dr. Bradley Jacobs. He talks about the ingredients and why a lot of us are struggling. And then I say, let's just throw those out the window and let's cook with ingredients that make us feel really great. So Gusteau said anyone can cook. I think if I had a motto, mine would be, or I want people to say about me, her food tastes so good, you don't care that it's good for you. It's just delicious and comforting and all of those things, and it just happens to be really, really good for you. So today we're going to cook two of my favorite recipes from the book.
Excellent.
And I'm going to use Jenna to help get me going on all of this. And I am not a vegetarian. Are there any vegetarians here? 1, 2, okay, a couple, 3, yeah. So as I've kind of been on this road to wellness, I definitely realized I was eating too much animal protein, and I've been taking a greater interest in understanding where it comes from and what animal protein I'm choosing to eat. So that being said, I wanted to develop some recipes that are much more approachable and delicious that are vegetarian for my family to eat all week, and that are really simple to make. So I cheated in the spirit of television, right? You can just speed things up a little bit for us
Google
today.
Vision.
Google Vision, we'll call it. Right, I love that. And I'm starting, this is a red lentil curry that I'm gonna make. And all I did to start was start sauteing some onions. So many cultures and so many recipes start with something like put some oil in the pan, put it over medium heat, saute for 8 to 10 minutes the onions until they're soft and translucent. I like to remind people that we want to look for visual cues, right? I can write it and say cook them for 6 to 8 minutes, but everybody cooks differently. Temperatures are different. And so you can see here, I let them get pretty brown and caramelized. The sugars have released, and that's why they'll be brown and soft and delicious. If you were just to throw all of this liquid in without doing that, you wouldn't soften the onions and you would never get any of that sweetness. So we want that, the fancy term, the Maillard reaction of the onions to cook and the sugars to be released to come out, because it's going to add so much flavor to what we're making, okay? So you're going to see this in a million types of recipes from all around the globe, and it's a really nice way to start things. So my onions went for probably 6 to 8 minutes. And now I'm going to add some garlic. This just goes for about a minute because garlic burns really quickly. And if it burns, you're going to get that really bitter taste, and it's going to spread throughout the curry, which we don't want. We want it to still be delicious and sweet. So I'm going to add that. Garlic and onions are both from the allium family, which have amazing anti-inflammatory properties on their own and help with digestion too. I've got fresh ginger. And we talk a lot in the book about ingredients and the positive benefits of them. What's interesting in Asia, and as I tried to educate myself more on Asian cuisines everywhere from Thailand, which this kind of comes from, to India, they've all been using spices and herbs that are really good for us for ages. And so I had to get away from pulling from a lot of the Mediterranean recipes I'm familiar with and try to pull in the rest of the world in my cooking.
Yeah, I think global spice perspective is really important, especially in bringing flavor to things like vegetables without a ton of salt and or sugars or oils. Like, can really build a lot of foundational flavor just through spices.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I think that a lot of times I use salt generously when I cook, but the thing is when you're cooking at home, you'll never use as much salt as you do in a restaurant, you know, which is great.
You really don't want to know generally restaurant recipes.
You don't. And so I don't worry about how much salt I add. Right, yeah. Not here. Never. But the thing is, spices, you know, give you so much flavor that you'll probably find yourself cooking with less salt if you're using a lot of spices.
Absolutely agree.
So I just put in a blend of garam masala, and that it can vary a little bit what's in it. Coriander, cumin, I can't name all of them off the bat, but it's like a really nice warm blend of spices, and it's just going to add a ton of flavor. And then I added this red chili paste, which it doesn't want to move around the pan, but that's okay. It's going to dissolve a little bit when I add my other ingredients. I'm going to turn up the heat on this amazing induction cooktop that you have. All I'm looking for here is to cook this a little bit. So if you can see in this pot, the red chili paste is going to turn a little bit more brick in color. It's going to turn a little more orange. And that's just bringing out the flavors in it again before we add those other things, okay? Is there an oil I prefer to cook with? So I talk about different oils in the book. I love olive oil for a lot of the things I do. I'm using canola oil in this, which has some great health benefits as well. It's a really neutral tasting oil. So if I don't want the oil to be the strong flavor in it, I'll usually cook with canola. And the one thing that I look for in oils, I do look for organic and non-GMO, because so many of those things can be sprayed so heavily with pesticides. Canola is one of those. So there are some great ones on the market now that you can find at your local store that say non-GMO and organic for a fairly inexpensive price, which is great. So can you see how that all just looks dark? And look at all that stuff on the bottom of the pan, all that brown stuff. It's what I like to call yummy goodness.
Yeah, yum yums, I think it's a technical term.
It is. I'm pretty sure it is.
The yum yums at the bottom.
Yum yums. And so basically, that's all of that caramelized goodness, and you don't want to get rid of it, right? You want to be able to bring it into the flavors of what you're making. So we're doing the fancy term of what I just did. We're deglazing. And so see how I can lift off all of that? I put some cold liquid in the pan, and it's going to react with the food on the bottom of it and just lift it right up. So I just put in a little of my liquid to start, and all of that is going to become part of this foundation for this curry, which is delicious. So whether you're doing a vegetarian dish like this, or you're doing something that's meat-based, like a protein, steak, beef caramelizes really well like that, you want all of that back up into your sauce. We would never want to throw it away unless you happen to really burn it. You would have to start fresh. But now that it's in, I'm going to crank this up a little bit and add the rest of my liquids. Okay, great. So I'm going to bring it up to high just to bring it to a simmer. Water is a very underutilized ingredient, I think, when you cook. And it's kind of like we're just talking about oils. When you want something neutral, but you need the liquid, don't forget about it, right? You could certainly do chicken stock or vegetable stock if you wanted, but you're adding another flavor component there. So I'll use water when I don't have stock for things like risotto. Like you can totally use it to interchange with things. And I just don't want stock competing with these other flavors that I've got going on in the pot.
Interesting.
Yeah. So now what we're going to do is just add a couple more liquids. And this is so easy in that you're just putting a bunch of things in at once, and then we're going to let it simmer. We're going to add the other components. Coconut milk. You guys can read in the book as well. Coconut oil got a really bad rap for a long time because we were refining it. But we're finding basically that great rule of thumb that if it comes from nature, it's probably good for you.
If you could leave it alone.
Right, if you leave it alone. And so coconut oil is having a total comeback. It's something that we really, right? It's so hot right now. It really is. Coconut milk, I love cooking with. And again, it's giving you that awesome depth of flavor and some fat to add flavor when you're cooking vegetarian things. Fat is flavor, as we like to say in the culinary world. And so I think a lot of people, when they crave steak and crave chicken with skin and things like that, it's the fat that we love in our diet, which can be really good for us. But I love to look for things that can replace them. I'm going to add some lime juice too for the acid, so it balances the richness of the coconut. And then, Jen, I wasn't talking to you about this. Who was I talking to? Oh, with Chef. I was talking to Chef Didi about this at the beginning, how agave syrup, is already a hot thing. We're already starting to see in the food community that we're probably not that crazy about it anymore, and that the best natural sweeteners are honey and maple syrup as you find them in nature. And so it's interesting because they think now agave syrup can spike your blood sugar in ways that we're not crazy about.
That's so interesting.
Right? And because it's got more fructose in it.
Yeah, but that was kind of counter indicated a couple years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and so
you always have to pay attention. The food world evolves so quickly.
It does. And I think you can't chase every trend, but I think again it comes back to some common sense. And what I loved about having a doctor partner with me on the book is that he could kind of prove my hypotheses, right? And he was saying, stick to things that are natural and just don't use a ton of them. So agave I was using, but I've switched to honey at home. And maple syrup when I need to. I put maple syrup in my coffee. I don't know why I think that's tasty, but I love it.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, so we're going to do a little agave for sweet.
Okay.
And just bring this up to a simmer before I add the lentils. And then we're going to let those cook for about 10 or 15 minutes on their own, and then just put in some vegetables to finish it off, and that's the dish. So it's pretty straightforward. The one thing to keep in mind as you're making something like this is that you can totally make it your own. So a lot of times we'll do chicken in this. If I have a chicken or I roast a chicken, I'll add part of that into this dish. You could do tofu if you are a vegetarian and you want another source of protein. You can switch up your veggies to whatever's seasonal.
Sure.
If you want more color, I'll put broccoli in it instead of cauliflower.
Bell pepper even maybe?
Bell pepper would be delicious.
Yeah.
And I would probably cook those off with the onion at the beginning just to add, just to kind of
Soften.
caramelize and sweeten those up a little bit. So
Curry
far,
can-
so good?
Yeah, curry can be a good kitchen clean, like, oh, what do I have in the veggie basket?
I totally agree with you. And that's normally how I do it. I was
Yeah,
laughing
me
when I
too.
saw this recipe because I'm like, when's the last time I actually cooked the recipe like this? I was like, it's normally I've got something, always have something green in my refrigerator. Or the other thing I love to do is roast vegetables off at a really high heat because again, they get caramelized and sweet. So if you think people don't like cauliflower, I don't know if you like cauliflower over here. Roasted, it's a lot sweeter. So you can always roast off vegetables and then put them in here at the last minute too, and it gives a different element of flavor. So you can see that everything's simmering now, which is right what I want. Got my water. Do we have a lid for this big pot? We'll get one. Thank you, chef. And all I'm going to do is turn it down with the lid on and let it simmer, which means, you know, I just want a little bit of a bubble going when the lid's on. If steam is coming out of it like crazy, you'll know that we are cooking it at too high of a temperature. So can someone be my volunteer to watch the clock for about 10 minutes, 10 or 15, and let me know when time's up? Thank you. Thank you, lovely assistant over
Thank
there.
you. All
Great.
right.
So let's put a lid on it. And then we'll move on to another recipe while we're waiting for this one to finish. I think 3 will be good. Okay, great. So this, literally, when it's done cooking there, we're just going to add our vegetables in, and then I'm going to teach you how to season it and taste for flavorings at the end of it. But great recipe to take home and make your own and really just practice kind of the foundation of it and going from there.
And what would you generally serve that with?
So I like to serve it kind of as the entree, and today you will try it with some brown rice. So it's really nice if you want to do it like that. This would be a really typical weeknight meal in my house because you could make it ahead, and actually the flavors develop even more, which I love. So with some rice or even quinoa if you want it on the side,
Yeah.
would be great. Be really great. We're just going to do a little change here.
All right.
And then let's talk about our quinoa while we get ready to do the whole salad. Who here likes quinoa? Yeah? It's been a total change. No, shaking your head. You're in the same camp I was for a long time. So when that lovely doctor told me I couldn't have gluten anymore, my first thought was I was going to get fired from my job because we create products all day long that are full of gluten, you know, like amazing baked goods and cookies and breads. And so that was my first fear. And then my second was that I was going to have to learn how to like quinoa because it really never did it for me. I love couscous. I love all those great grain salads you could get. But a couple of tricks which I learned which are so much better. And Jenna, do you mind handing me that quinoa, that big sieve that's down on the end? Thank you so much. One is that quinoa naturally has a natural pesticide on it called saponins. And when you rinse the quinoa, you rinse that off. So if any of you ever had it and you're like, there's this taste about it that I just don't like or I can't identify, it's probably the saponins on the quinoa. So weird, right?
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Right, so it's like to rinse or not to rinse. Now to rinse is what
for
I
sure.
say. So you rinse those off, and then it's a really easy formula for cooking. And it's just like rice. So I love formulas when I'm cooking, just so that you do it once and you remember.
I think you're speaking to the right crowd
Am
in
I?
that regard.
I love it. I love having a foundation, and then you can make it your own. But with quinoa, like rice, all you're going to do is 2 parts water to 1 part quinoa. It's that simple. And a little bit of salt. Again, if you wanted to put it in stock, you could if you want more flavor in that. I usually just do it with water and then a little bit of salt, and you're good to go. So I'm just going to put this right in the pot, and then I'm going to eyeball my water. You know what I love about cooking, and this is why I'm not a great baker? It's because it doesn't have to be that exact all the time, right? Like, it's okay to eyeball things or change out ingredients when you have something else. So you start with that foundation, and then you get to make it your own. Put this over here. Jenna, I'm going to have you watch some of this stuff. No, actually, I'm going to put you to work on the vinaigrette as well. I forgot. I have another job for you. So this is literally how we're going to do this, folks. 2 parts water.
Very technical.
Very, very technical, right? Pinch of salt. I always keep salt and pepper at the cooktop. You know, they're going to be your best friends when you cook. And another thing to remember is that you taste all the time as a cook. You know, if you wait until the end, sometimes it's too late. So you want to be tasting as you go, and you'll watch me taste the lentils before I add the veggies back in, just to kind of see where we are on the flavors. I'm pretty sure it's going to need salt. And I'll do the same thing as I cook and make these other things for you. So always make sure you're tasting and adjusting as you go. Now let's see if I can use this fancy cooktop. I can.
And how long for quinoa generally?
So quinoa is really easy in that it's about 15 to 20 minutes. And all we're looking for, can you guys see actually on my spoon how are these tiny, cute little grains, right? They're actually seeds. It's going to split, and it's going to give this cute little white seam on the outside of it. So all we're looking for it to do is split. And you can overcook it just like you'd overcook anything. It's certainly not the end of the world, but I'm probably going to check it at about 12 minutes. And then let it go as long as 20. So we'll see how hot this cooktop is, and give it a whirl. I'm going to let that come to a boil before I put a lid on it.
All right, what's the plan?
So the next plan, what we'll do is we'll make the vinaigrette for the quinoa while we're waiting for these other things to cook. How many of you have made vinaigrettes before? No? God, you guys are, yeah, okay, fantastic. One of the things that I love, Jenna, is that if you go and you buy salad dressing or a vinaigrette at the store, it's one of those things that can be loaded with sodium and salt. And you don't need the extra fillers in them. They're so easy to make at home. And so it's one of my, when people ask me what's one of the best things you could do for yourself at home, I say make vinaigrettes. And you can do a big batch. I love to just make a huge thing of it. And again, it's about proportions and ratios. So we're going to learn that, and then you just keep them around. So we're going to start with, oh, I love how everything is meat. It's amazing. Do you want to bring this up here for you? And then I'm going to grab the garlic, and then we're going to just do one really basic vinaigrette. People always ask me, especially where I work at Williams-Sonoma, we sell, you know, the most amazing tools ever. They're like, what do you really have to have in your kitchen? And like a knife, a great knife and a great cutting board. I love both things. So I'm going to show you a little trick today with one of my favorite knives. And first I'm going to just push down on that garlic. See how I do that? Because I want to mince it, and I want to get it really fine. But this salt is going to act as an abrasive. So when you go to chop it, it's just going to kind of like bring it together. It's really, really easy. And then I'm going to have you finish off the vinaigrette for us.
For sure. That's a fun trick.
Cool.
I don't know that one.
It's kind of like a little chef hack. You look really serious and fancy, and it's not that hard to do. So can I get a second timer for my quinoa, please? For 12 minutes? Thank you. All right, so I just sprinkled a little bit of kosher salt. Kosher salt's got a larger grain to it, and I put that on the garlic, and now watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to start chopping. You can hold it. You guys see how I'm holding the knife? Just got my thumb and my index finger around it like this, right? It creates stability. And what you'll see is that all I'm going to do is rock my wrist. I'm not going to be taking the knife up like this. You can usually just keep the tip of your knife on the board, and you let your wrist do the work, okay? So I'm just going to start to chop this, but it would be a lot more slippery if I didn't have the salt on it. And then what you can do is kind of press all this together. And this is going to help me form like really finely chopped pieces of garlic. So if you do a ton of it at once, it's actually easier if you have a bunch of cloves, because you've got more surface area kind of to work with. But I just kind of press it. It's kind of fun, right? You look really grown up and serious. Morgan over here's got this mastered. So great. Just keep bringing it back together and chopping away. I just don't want really huge chunks in it, so when you're eating the salad, you're like, whoa, I just got so much garlic. Again, it's so great for digestion, garlic is, and so I try to use it whenever I can. And in vinaigrettes, it adds a great layer of flavor. Okay, so I'm putting this in as my base, because this is one of my favorites.
Love it.
Who's ready to talk formula?
What you got?
Okay, really easy. The opinions have changed on this, but I like to use 2 parts oil to 1 part acid when you're making a vinaigrette. And then usually, if you don't want it to be broken, you can use a binder. Okay. So you can use as much of a binder as you want. Some of the ones we love to use mustard, so like a Dijon mustard, it'll bring it all together for you. Mayonnaise, I love mayonnaise. I love mayonnaise a little too much. You could use egg yolk, you know, that's a classic one. People also, in very old styles of cooking, use blood. Not a fan, personally. Haven't done that since culinary school, and I probably will never again. So
Maybe not.
yeah, no, I'll pass on that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Not my thing. So I'm starting with garlic, and you could add any aromatic that you want. You could add fresh herbs if you want. You can add something for sweetness. But now all I want to do is I want to start by adding my binder. So Jenna, if you want to put the Dijon in, do you need a little spoon? Are you good?
A little.
And then we have a whisk for you. Perfect. And I start with a pinch of salt, guys. And then now I want you to take your acid. So today we're using lemon juice. This is kind of my version of like a healthy Caesar dressing if you wanted to do. And I just want you to whisk that in. If you wanted, you could use orange juice, lime juice, balsamic vinegar. You know, there's so many. I use a lot of sherry vinegar. So it completely depends on your taste. When I'm making salads that I want to taste really fresh and clean, I usually go towards citrus. I just love the flavor of strong citrus in my vinaigrettes.
All right.
So look at how easy that is. See, already figured out. So that was your 1 part acid, and now you need 2 parts oil.
All right, what
and
kind of
so
oil are we
we're going to
using?
use olive oil, and we're just going to eyeball this again. Crazy people that we are. So
Getting crazy in
yeah.
here.
So you can add a little bit to start and whisk it in, and you'll see it start to come together. One of the coolest things about this too is if you whisk too quickly and you're not emulsifying as you go, doesn't matter. Just put it in a jar and shake it as hard as you can, and it'll bring it back together. You've clearly done this once or twice.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, she's like, no, I don't know. I just
First
do it
time.
every day.
First time.
But so far so good, right? Not too hard to do, but it can totally change the way your food tastes. And it's a really easy thing to do at home. This is, my younger son thinks he's super cool because he can make a vinaigrette, right? And it sounds
pretty
super
cool.
fancy.
I don't know.
Yeah. But it's nice to have around. Then when you come home from work, it's so much easier to make a salad.
You make the vinaigrette.
You.
wash the greens.
Yes.
You chop the veggies.
Exactly.
I like it. I like it.
Exactly. You'll just see all kinds of mason jars in my refrigerator. It looks like a little scientist workshop, right? There's balsamic, there's a
great.
citrus one usually. I like to do one if I'm making Mexican food where, oh, thank you. I've got my cue to check my lentils. I'll do some with like a chipotle and adobo and use
yum.
that as the base, and then add honey and orange juice and oil, one of my favorites, or
that
lime
sounds
juice you can do
amazing.
too. Check it out. This looks good. I'm gonna taste like I promised you I would. Let's see. It's tasty, but it needs more salt for sure. And then I'm gonna give it about, oh, let's have the veggies now. Let's be wild. Not too much is gonna go wrong. It's the other thing about cooking when people are like, what if I mess it up? Guess what? Who cares? It's so cool to be cooking, and people love when you cook for them, right? And so sometimes we mess up. My family has to eat all of my mistakes. There are a lot of them.
But that's good lessons always too, right? Then you know what you did wrong. You don't do it again.
Absolutely. And so, you know, especially cooking my way through this book where I had to use different ingredients than I was used to, or more of things that I was used to, I messed up a ton. But it's kind of fun. It's part of the journey.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write the book?
Oh my. You know, it took me a long time to write the proposal because I couldn't figure out how to present a topic that was so serious to people, right?
Not a serious book, though. It's very accessible.
So I wanted to kind of tell that personal story and make people feel like they could relate. So it took me probably 4 months to write the proposal. And keep in mind, I was doing it on nights and weekends, right, outside of my regular job. And then probably a solid 6 months on the weekends cooking to develop all the recipes. I try to do like 5 or 6 a weekend and then just throw parties where you invite your whole block over and be
Love
like,
it.
what do you think? Critique me, which everybody did, by the way. But it worked out. So
Great.
it's good, yeah. So we'll give this, I added the cauliflower and the garnet yam. I'm gonna give it another 10 minutes for my lovely timing team. And let's see how this is doing in here. Oop, we'll turn up a little bit. Every cooktop's different, right? So if I tell you to cook on low or medium low, again, that visual cue, you just want it to be barely bubbling while it's simmering, and it wasn't doing that quite yet. So we'll check on that.
All right. How do we know we're done with vinaigrette?
So again, we're gonna taste, I want a little pepper in
Yeah.
mine. I know that, Jenna. Let's put that in. And of course, you can add, if you like things really peppery, use a ton more. One interesting thing about pepper that you'll read about in the book as well, it's a thermogenic, and so when you combine it with other spices, it releases the bioavailability of that spice more, which is crazy term for saying it makes it absorb into your body better. So turmeric you hear a lot about with anti-inflammatory cooking. It's an amazing ingredient. You'll usually see it with black pepper because black pepper makes it, I think, 2,000% more available to be absorbed into your body.
Wow.
So black pepper's amazing. How does it taste?
Delicious.
Is it?
FYI.
Oh, good. See, you're pro. Then you could, next time you want to go crazy, do lime juice, right?
That would be good.
I like it.
Yeah.
And going into something like quinoa, you want it to be a little bit more pungent because quinoa is so neutral, it can kind of taste flat. So
Yeah,
a lot of
like a
times,
punch.
yeah, like on lettuce, I like it like this. And when you get it in the quinoa, we might want a little bit more acid to give it a little more flavor, okay? So our vinaigrette is done. And now we can start working on the other components of the quinoa salad.
All right.
With the magic of Google Vision, it just all slides into the picture here. And we do it all. I'm going to teach you guys a couple of knife skills and what did you call them? Google hacks? Hacks. We're going to do some kitchen hacks for you right now to make it easier to make this salad. Any questions as we're going?
Ta-da.
We're good? Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of people do use egg yolks as a binder raw. And so if you don't want to be eating raw egg yolk, you definitely steer clear of that one. Yeah, I love the flavor, but a lot of people are nervous about that, rightfully so. So yeah. Okay, so we have all of these beautiful things already that we're going to put into our salad today. And I'm just going to teach you how to do these yourself a couple other ways. So, you know, people always say to me, what's your best tool? And I joke, it's called a knife. But really, like everything here you can do with a knife. And then there are a couple other little tools I like. So I wonder too, I don't know if you guys have any more green onions back there hiding in the kitchen, but I'll show you one more trick if you do. That'd be great, thank you. But first with the carrots, let me show you something that's just a fun trick. You guys, this space is so amazing. I don't know who had to do this, but look at how gorgeous they are. My carrots are going to look this beautiful and this perfect, but pretty amazing. So I'm just going to peel my carrot. This is my favorite peeler, by the way. This is what I use all day, every day. And then I like to do things as simply as possible for recipes. But the thing is, we eat with our eyes, right? We want things to look beautiful. And so anytime I can do a little shortcut and make it really pretty, I like to do that. And for some reason, most of us think things are really pretty when they're on the bias, you know, when they're cut on an angle instead of straight on. It's funny
Well,
how
it's fancy that way.
right? And so you can do this, which is, yeah, slightly on the bias, or you can cut them. And even with this, I'll show you. So for green onions, otherwise known as scallions, all I do is cut the tops off. And then, I'm going to move this for a sec. You just want to put your knife at an angle, right? And I'm just going to start slicing across them. I don't know why. Doesn't that look nice? It's like fancy, super fancy. It just elevates the look of the recipe. So we're going to do that. See, again, I'm just using my fingers to stabilize the knife and keeping the tip of the knife on the board. And then the oh so important claw on the other side. When you keep your fingers wrapped underneath, you don't have to worry about cutting them off. So, important little tip for us. Watch, I'm just going to go straight into the quinoa with this. In you go. And then I'll add the pine nuts that's there in front of me. Pine nuts are really expensive right now. They're hard to come by, and so I love them for flavor. I love them in my pesto, but another alternative would be roasted almonds would be delicious, or you can buy slivered almonds and just toast them in a pan really quickly. I also love pistachios in salads or cashews. So I teach you how to toast them on a sheet pan where you just put them in an oven for a couple of minutes. That's the less finicky way to do it because they won't burn so quickly. But if you're watching them and you pay attention, you can do them on the cooktop and just toast them really quickly and make sure they don't burn and get them off the heat.
Don't get distracted.
Don't get distracted,
Every time
right?
I do it, I inevitably burn some.
Right?
Oh, what did you say? Burnt.
Burnt. In that amount of time.
Literally.
You're not kidding. You're totally not kidding. How do I store mine? I store my nuts in the freezer, actually. I think it extends the life of them a little bit, so well sealed in the freezer. Yeah, unless I'm going to use them really quickly. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So keep them stored tightly in the freezer. Yeah. Currants, I love balances in salads where you've got a little bit of every flavor component going on. So something sweet. Currants are great. They're small, so they're easy to like mix through things. If you want them really plump and juicy in your salad, you can rehydrate them by just putting them in a couple tablespoons of hot water. So while I make this, I would let them sit in the hot water, and they just get a little plumper and juicier for you. Another one would be, I love dried cherries. Dried blueberries are delicious, cranberries, of course. Again, this is one of those things where I'm a stickler about organics. Thank you for the quinoa cue. Because they're such small, soft fruits that they can absorb all those pesticides so quickly. So I think it's worth paying a little bit extra for the organic. So can you guys see my quinoa right here? Can you see how it's split? So you're gonna see this little white seam popping out. And as always, I'm gonna taste and see where we are on it. It's like pasta. You want it to have a little bit of a bite, but not too much. So I'm going to let it go for about 2 more minutes. You can see the liquid in there too, Jenna.
And do you expect that it will absorb it all?
If it's a perfect day and the humidity's right in the world and everything's great, yes. If not, I would just put it right back through that quinoa.
Yep.
And just skim off the water. And then another great little trick for cooling it down quickly, you could let it sit in the pot and turn off the heat. I'll put mine onto a big baking sheet and just spread it out, and it cools down in a matter of minutes, and then you're ready to go and put it into your salad. So let's do one more little trick here with the largest carrot I think I've ever seen in my life.
Pretty healthy carrot.
That is a big carrot, right? You could certainly save the scraps, you guys, for anything like a veggie stock too. So I love it when I can cook and save things like that. So this is a super fancy thing we're gonna do. I'm gonna teach you 2 things, julienning versus dicing. But julienning, my friend Melissa taught me this. You're gonna slice the carrot at a bias, again, these big fancy pieces. And then look at this. I don't know why I think this is the coolest trick I've ever seen. I'll get this out of the way while we do it. I don't think I learned this until about 2 years ago, and I thought she was so smart for teaching me this, and I always make her teach other people the same thing. So you can line them up, and then you just cut across, and you hold them down. So if you stack them on top of each other, that one is a little too thick, you can just move really quickly. So you could certainly do one thing with a piece at a time, but if you stack them over each other like that and overlap them a little bit, you'll go faster. So that's just a really pretty way to make something look a little bit nicer for your salad. They did that for the cover of the book, so I'm like, forever I'll be julienning, but I just tell people to dice it, So show you a dice too. One really important thing when you're working with knives is that you want to be working with flat surfaces. It's scary to have something rolling around on a cutting board for you when you're working with something this sharp. And so I like to cut something off like a sweet potato, a potato, carrots. I always like to give myself a steady base when I'm slicing. So then I'm just going to cut right through. I don't know if you guys can tell, but this knife is so sharp that it's so easy. You don't have to put a lot of pressure on things. So if you're putting a lot of pressure, you're probably needing to sharpen your knives. So I'm just cutting it into even thickness pieces, and then I'm going to cut across. And then I'll turn it, and I'll cut across again. So you can be exacting, or you can move as quickly as you'd like, depending on how perfect you want your salad to look. So that's a large dice. You can certainly do smaller for something like this, so it's closer to the size of a currant. And we're good to go. A little bit smaller here. Chef's team does it better, I swear. Again, this is why I'm a cook and not a baker. So, it's just practice. It's just practice of doing the same thing over and over. And it's great to practice on carrots and onions and things that you have around the house all the time and work on your knife skills. It's good. I'm going to add these julienne ones.
The fancy ones.
And then I'll add her fancy pants ones. They're gorgeous. And then the last trick for radishes. Now, you can certainly do this with a knife, but can you see how perfect these are? I mean, they're like all perfectly even. I don't know if they used a mandolin or not, but this is my one gadget that I'm obsessed with at work. And I don't even use like the fancy mandolins. You can get some that are really big with huge discs that you can change in and out, which I love. This is just a smaller, easier version of this that it has 4 pads here. And all I'm going to do, again, I want a steady surface, right? So, and it comes with a guard. I did bring mine, see? So you can be extra safe. You can do this a couple ways. You just slide it right over. And you're not having to put a lot of pressure on it. So I love that. And then when it gets down close and you want to watch your fingers, just
also,
like that.
when you should not look away while you're doing this.
I'm like, yes?
Finger comes right up. Well, you have the guard.
Yeah. But that's one time where I'll cut corners because I think it's so much easier. And I love how consistent it is. You know, you have to be really good with a knife to make them look that perfect
And if
every
you get
time.
one of the small ones, like they make a lot like this that are even just with a handle, you don't have to wash a big, huge one. I have
Right.
a big, huge one, and it's
No.
just so much to wash.
a lot.
This is easier.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that, you know, it's super fast and it's a tool I use all the time. It's got some shredding blades for cheese or lettuce or things like that as well. So I use that little tool like crazy.
I think they're indispensable for like gratin or anything
Oh,
where you
great
want,
point.
right? Like
Yep.
potato,
Exactly.
any root veggie, like
Exactly.
makes a huge difference.
I agree with you. So that's all we're doing for the salad, you guys. And it's just really about mastering two things, like how to cook your quinoa and how to make the vinaigrette. And then the rest becomes whatever you have that you like. We're going to add some herbs to it as well and put it all together. So you can see on this quinoa now too, it's fluffy, the grain is
yes.
split, right? Like I said, I keep calling it a grain. It's a seed technically. But that's all you have to do with it. The thing I love about quinoa as well, Jenna, is that it stays at room temp really well and it lasts in your fridge really well. So I started using it like as a base for stir fries too. I'll do a savory stir fry. Looks like this is done as well. And then it lasts in your fridge for days. So something you can think about making ahead again before we put the vinaigrette on that. Or actually, I can have you do that for me.
Sure.
While I check the lentils. Do you want to toss that with some of the vinaigrette and then we'll taste it?
Do we have? They're bringing it.
Oh,
back
is it?
over.
Oh, great, fantastic. So let's take a look at this. Looks delish. I don't know if my vegetables are cooked enough yet. We're gonna taste. I like it when my food tastes good. I don't know why I'm always surprised. You know, when it works out, I'm like, oh, that's actually tasty. But it's just such a joy to cook.
Toss it in this bigger bowl here.
It needs 5 more minutes and then it will be done. The veggies are almost cooked, but I don't want them to be so crunchy. You're going, huh? What's that about? And then we'll finish both of these off with fresh herbs. And herbs, the thing that's so interesting, again, when I really started to do my research on this, is that all of these different ingredients have different health benefits, which I find so fascinating. You know, that if you just grew a garden and you go out and you start pulling different things, how they're all different for you in different ways. And so mint has great digestive properties to it, which we're going to use in this salad. We're going to finish the curry off with cilantro and get some great health benefits from that as well. Let's put the mint in now. That's our mint. Yeah. We'll mix that in and then I'll taste. How's that?
Sounds good.
Thank you. It's so fun having someone do this with me. I'm not used to it.
Oh, I'll take it.
We do our own
Me too.
dish too at work. We wash all our dishes. So if you guys need me to stay and do dishes, I'm in. It's crazy to say, but this has become one of those things that I actually crave now. You know, it's so clean and it's so delicious, but you have it and you feel like you know you're doing something good for yourself, but it's still like I could eat a whole bowl of this. So
Love
it's
it.
kind of crazy. I'm going to add just a little bit more oil and then a little bit more lemon juice. Yes. Bless you over there. And let's taste. See how vibrant it is? That's the other thing. I love anything where you can have this many colors and it's just appealing. You want to try with me? Tell me what you think.
Of course I want to try.
Spoon
Thought
for
you'd
you.
Never ask.
Thank you. What do you think it needs more of?
Try a bit more salt.
I agree.
That sweetness from the currants comes through. It's really delicious.
You like that?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great right at the end.
Let's add a little more salt. Again, it's so nice when you can add as you go, right? We don't want to overdo it.
Yeah, I mean, better to add at the end than to end up with something too salty or pungent or...
And salt, many of you probably already know this, but salt just brings out all of the flavors in your food. So you'll see it in a lot of desserts as well when you're working with chocolate and vanilla. It brings out all of those great notes. And so it's an amazing ingredient to use. delicious.
Love it.
We did a good job.
Oh, well, yay us. I'll take some credit. This much credit.
So we'll just finish this off. And while we're waiting for this, does anybody have any questions about what we're making here today?
I'm going to start with the breakfast quinoa
Okay, yeah.
book, but I'm looking to create a vegan burger that would knock people's socks off.
That would not be what?
Knock people's socks off. Do you have any ideas?
Do I have any ideas? I do. And a lot of them involve, it's funny, quinoa again, and beets. I don't know if you've ever used beets to create some sort of a veggie burger, but I'd be happy to send you some ideas for it. We went through this phase at work where we were trying to create the best veggie burger ever. My boss's husband is vegan, and he was obsessed with this one burger he'd had. So I'd be happy to send you some ideas. Beets are great for texture and getting like that meatiness. Mushrooms too, if you like mushrooms, can be a great component. Quinoa, oats sometimes. So I have some ideas.
Yeah, you got to get that umami.
And I haven't been able to
Recreate it. Especially vegan without egg, it's trickier, right? And so I'd be happy to help. I think all of us in the test kitchen combined could come up with something good for you. Then maybe I should do it for my next book.
There you go.
Which is crazy.
Do you have an idea for a next book?
I think so. I think that...
Is it a super secret? Can you share?
No, it's not secret at all, because now I can bounce it off all of you. And maybe I should ask you after you've tried more of the recipes. But I was really surprised at how much this topic resonated with people because, you hear the word inflammation and it sounds like, I don't know, like it's for my mother, right? Like it's something that you deal with when you're a little bit older. But when somebody used the term to describe my health, I was like, wait a minute, that's weird. I'm not, I was 38 when I started to figure this out. And I'm hearing from people of all ages. And I'm hearing from people who have autoimmune issues. So many people come up to me at my kids' baseball games and say, I have Hashimoto's or I've got other thyroid issues and I changed my diet and I feel so much better.
Or chronic pain.
Chronic.
Yeah.
All this arthritis, all these arthritic symptoms.
Absolutely.
So I think that I want to keep doing more of this food, but make people understand truly that it can be really easy and approachable. And these recipes are all very straightforward, but maybe put more of like a weeknight or like family spin on it. So it's very overtly saying you can make this kind of food every day for everyone.
You could do this all the time. I love it.
Yeah. So I'd love your feedback after this if you have any ideas. But
how good is that salad?
You like?
Really?
Even if you don't like quinoa, you don't have to. You don't have to say yum. But
okay.
It's become my standby, my replacement for couscous for sure.
Theoretically,
what do you think over here?
Make it.
You're good? Oh my gosh,
you
fantastic.
can make it with a different base.
Oh, absolutely, you could.
Farro would probably
oh my gosh,
delicious.
It'd be delicious. You could certainly barley. You could do it with a lot of different grains. You certainly don't have to use quinoa.
And I would argue you can make a very similar salad with our salad bar ingredients here. We have cold grains,
oh my gosh,
quinoa,
amazing.
and farro.
You do?
Lots of those ingredients.
Yep.
We always have lemon juice and olive oil, so you could absolutely throw this together. And I think you're going to start seeing more of this stuff out and about too. These amazing grain-based prepared salads.
I love this place. I'm like, I want to eat lunch here every day. I'm telling you, this is only my second time here, and I can't believe how amazing it is. So that's pretty cool. You've got access to these things every day, And quinoa is a complete protein, actually. So when you really do need to be able to think for the rest of the afternoon, it's a great source of protein to have around and a wonderful option.
Yeah, that's something we've been talking a lot about lately is different types of protein in your diet. I think the American diet is very focused on animal protein.
Yeah.
But there's all of these other great protein bases that you can get in something like this. So I think a lot of people would see this and think, I need to put some chicken on that or something on top of it.
Yeah, right,
But
something to add
at the end of the day, this is a complete protein. This is a really solid source for like sustained energy and
absolutely. And I think that's my thing. For the longest time, I didn't feel like I was having a complete meal unless I saw shrimp or chicken or something on that. Totally great on its own.
Yeah.
Avocado becomes my other one too, you know, just as a standby.
Well, that I would want just because I would want it. It's perfect.
So this is done as well. And I'm just going to add a little bit of lime to it because as I taste it, I love when you have something sweet that you add some acid to it to balance it out a little bit. And I just want a little bit more. And then I'm going to have you taste it and tell me what you think.
Do you do herb in that as well?
I'm going to top it with cilantro.
Oh, yum.
So you could mix it in. Again, sometimes, when you're working with lentils and curry, it's not that beautiful. No offense to my deliciously anti-inflammatory recipe here. But I love finishing things off with herbs to just balance it. And one interesting rule of thumb that you always learn in cooking school is that you would never garnish with something that you don't want in the recipe, right?
Yeah.
So if the recipe has basil and mint, you wouldn't just throw parsley on the top. But I actually want the cilantro to be part of this recipe, so I'm going to garnish with it and not put any in it. It can turn kind of dark if you put it in and then let it sit, and so that's the only reason I'm not mixing it in directly. So we're going to just finish it with a little lime juice, and then you can tell me, Jenna, if you think it needs more seasoning before we're done. Quinoa,
Hovering
okay?
excitedly with my spoon.
Let me give it a splash, just one little pinch of salt before you, yeah, exactly, and I'll give it a stir.
Clearly, everybody was super into the quinoa salad.
Or you're just really hungry?
It is. Well, we do it at lunch, but we don't tell them that's why we do it at lunch. No, it's because it's delicious, of course.
It's weird, though, how these foods can start to feel really fulfilling. And I went and cooked at a magazine recently in New York the week my book came out. And everybody was so cute. I did a ton of food from it, but they're like, we still feel good about ourselves at the end. Like you're not feeling too full or like you did something bad or that you're so full you can't think anymore.
Yum.
You like?
I
You
like
think it's
it.
okay? Enough
I
salt,
do.
enough acid? Okay,
Yum.
fantastic. Good.
I like it a lot.
So guys, those are two recipes that are really basic go-tos for you that I hope you love today.
How long do you keep a vinaigrette in the fridge for?
A really long time. I think I should probably say 1 to 2 weeks. 2 to 4. Yeah, a couple of weeks is fine, absolutely. If you're putting things in them that don't last as well, like garlic can go a little bit, I keep it at a week. But vinegar preserves things really well too, right? So yeah, a couple of weeks, you're good to go.
I'd love to ask something, which is, we were talking about throwing the raw egg in. I'm just curious, do you think the nature of the egg is important?
Oh, so I could talk to this all day. Yes, I do think the nature of the egg is important.
All eggs are not created equal.
They are not, and it's just like I think when you start talking about animal proteins, I got a couple of people brought up in my book, like, I can't believe you would put beef in your book. This is anti-inflammatory. Like I had a doctor say that, but when you start to really understand animal proteins and how important it is to find out where they're coming from and how they're raised, you realize that, grass-fed beef can work for you in a really amazing way. And it's full of omega-3 and omega-6s and has a profile similar to salmon. So when you ask about eggs, it's the same thing. To joke about Portlandia, have you guys ever seen that show about the chicken? Well, did the chicken come from down the street? Well, can I go see the chicken before you make the chicken for me? But I think it is really important to know where these things are coming from. And so for eggs, I look for organic and pasture, make sure. What's so amazing now is you can go to the grocery store and on most eggs, it'll tell you how it's been raised, which is amazing.
Yep.
It's going to change the flavor of it, and it's definitely going to change the health properties of it as well. Yeah. Great question.
So I've been interested in, I guess, diets, for lack of a better word, that treat health issues for a while, primarily on the digestive side. So I've tried gluten-free to paleo, to then the latest that I've kind of resonated with the most, but is the most difficult, is low FODMAPs. I don't know if you are familiar with that at all, but like, for example, the worst offenders are gluten, so that's fine, but also garlic and onion.
Exactly.
Which makes it really difficult.
And tell me again, you said low FODMAP?
Yeah.
FODMAPs is what, it's so funny. I just had a girlfriend bring this up to me, and the question was that what's your name? Lucy has been trying to work on some diets that help digestive problems, which is something I get into in the book as well, kind of about what's going on with our guts. You hear a lot these days about a leaky gut or digestive issues around certain foods. So trying gluten-free and paleo and then the FODMAPs diet, which is definitely different, and there are some foods that make it much worse than others. I think it's fascinating, and I just started to read up on it probably about a year ago. I had a girlfriend say she had huge success with it. And so I think it speaks to the fact that we're all different, right? And so I can share the story of, for me, I realized right away that gluten was one of the big ones for me, and then dairy was a secondary one for me. But it's a matter of figuring out what's affecting you positively and negatively and going from there. So I always encourage people to try things to feel better that way. And it's hard to eliminate foods from your diet and then try to work them back in to see what happens. but we're all unique. And so you might find that that is the way you need to eat for the rest of your life, and that you feel amazing that way. I will say, just speaking from someone who was told they couldn't have anything, how easy it was when I realized that gluten was what was making me feel terrible. People are like, don't you miss it? Yeah, I miss great pizza, of course. But I feel so much better that it doesn't feel like a sacrifice anymore. So that's my only positive spin on it for you, is that if you find out that it's honestly one of these things that we are used to eating a ton of, you'll be okay and you'll feel so much better.
And
Yeah.
it could be something innocuous. I have a friend whose son, it's artificial coloring.
Oh my gosh.
Is like
so funny, huge.
Insane.
Yep.
Like one stick of gum and he's completely off the rails for a whole day.
Right.
And I was asking her, how did you even figure out that was the thing?
That was it.
And it was a similar process with doctors, but I noticed it's on your list.
It's
as
on my
well.
list.
Yeah, it could be something so innocuous that you would never think of, but until she started trying.
Are in your medication too.
They are.
Recently was prescribed medication, and I said I can't take that. I take it Friday night, and
Yeah.
I'm out until Sunday
Yeah.
afternoon.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, because it has this diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like the version without
With the dye-free.
Yeah. It doesn't exist. That
Yeah.
happened to my dad like 30 years ago, and he's a doctor, and he's like, he has asthma. He's like, I'm having an allergic reaction to the asthma medication you're giving me with food dye. But food coloring's on that list, and I think it goes back to, again, it was really frustrating for me to realize that it took me 20 years to realize that if it doesn't come from the ground naturally, it's probably not that good for us. And so that's a great example of one as well that many of us are sensitive to.
Yeah, and I hope that the awareness to that type of thing will push change, because really, why does a medication need to be dyed a particular color?
Purple.
It's totally arbitrary.
Right.
Yeah, so we can tell all of the medications we take apart from one another.
Right.
It's indicative of maybe other.
Right, yeah, it is.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, such
everybody.
a treat to be here today. Thank you. Thanks for spending some time with us.